I want to welcome folks to who are just coming in to let them know that you're listening to the fourth annual Authors and Artists Festival. This is the second day. My name is Paul Richmond. Human Air Publishing was one of the hosts. Please tell your friends to come back because there's 3 tracks. There's so many great presentations, panelists, everybody presenting just great things and projects that they've done around this. And I want to jump right in and introduce Christopher so you can get started and have your time, Christopher, and welcome for being here.
Thank you very much. It's really great to be here. I did catch some of Noah and Claudia's reading. It was really great. The presentation was really wonderful. If people didn't get to see that, I hope that they'll go back and watch that. That was really nice. And I wanted to send Simone Scott my best wishes for healthy and speedy recovery. I'm sorry that they couldn't make it today. Wishing them well. And I assume you guys can hear me since my lips are moving and no one said anything otherwise.
Yes, you're fantastic.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. And I also just wanted to say a quick thanks for everyone that is joining today. I know a lot of people have put a lot of time and work into their artwork, into their craft, their gift, their poetry, etc., in order to even be in a place like this and in a space like this in their creative journey, for them to be able to be here. So thank you for that. And thank you for everyone that's joining in and listening. You know, I know there are a million other things that everybody else could be doing, but instead you're here. So thank you. And then, of course, thanks to everyone that's put this all together. I know it's a lot of hard work, so thank you. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm done. No, I'm just kidding. So I'd like to introduce myself and just a little bit of what I'm about. I promise this is all kind of relates to rewilding, even though I'll kind of weave it in and out a little bit here and there. I will share my screen. So yeah, my name is Christopher Gendron. I also go by the artist name of ARTmuffin. Can you guys see my title slide okay?
Yes, it looks all good.
Okay, great, thank you. So most people ask me where the name ARTmuffin comes from. So a very quick history. One day, a friend of mine and I were just talking about artist names or silly names or something along those lines. And I was just saying that I liked it when people's names were a contrast to their art or their band name or whatever. And suddenly the name just ARTmuffin just popped into my head. You know, and it seemed perfect for my art. You know, it's a contrast, it's catchy. Most people think it's going to be about muffins or cute animals or that I run a bakery or something. And that is not the case. And then every time I would tell people what my website was or is, artmuffin.com, generally they would laugh. And because it's silly, you know, and they're right. Yeah, it's perfect, and that's one of the things I love about it. You know, I have a 6-foot tablecloth that I use for conventions that says ARTmuffin in really big letters across the front. It gets attention because it's silly. You know, it's giant letters that say ARTmuffin with skulls and symbols and stuff on either side of them. It's a nice contrast, I feel. Yeah, I've heard people as they're walking towards my table, they just read it out loud. They're like ARTmuffin, and they just kind of start laughing. Yeah, and I really like that. And it keeps it fun. Yeah, and reminds me not to take myself too seriously. And it's some days it's tricky not to do that. So ARTmuffin can help. So that's the quick story behind the name. So as far as mystical art, that's what I refer to my artwork as for the most part. So what does that mean? I found a few definitions that I like, and I thought I'd share them before we get too far into this. So I won't spend much time on this, but I just wanted to share them with you. And this one, I kind of like it. I'm not going to read these to you, but I like the idea, we have reality that is neither apparent nor obvious. So it's some sort of mystery, possibly strange reality. Even the sample that they give is fun, and kind of relates to my work. This symbol has mystical powers. A lot of my work has strange symbols or hieroglyphs worked into it. So I like mystery. So the more mysterious, the better, in my opinion. And then let's see, we got dictionary.com's meaning. This one's nice, short and to the point, but still vague enough to be mysterious. Relates to supernatural agencies. Like, okay, that's fine. It could be supernatural or strange. Some might even say mystical, mystical experience. And then we've got the Cambridge Dictionary's version, which I like, relating to secret, dark, or mysterious. It sounds intriguing, attractive in that like dark, like drawn to a vampire kind of way. It to many people that might be considered alluring, and to others maybe not so much, and that's fine too. And to some it might be as silly as their example. Often these mystical stories he told were interrupted by his phone, which it makes for an amusing contrast, and it is very relatable, I feel like, especially now with technology, how it is, and trying to balance technology with mysticism or getting back to rewilding, right? So what does any of this have to do with rewilding? So when I was first approached by Lise McLaughlin to have one of my pieces, this one shown here called Prophecy Infection, she asked if I was interested in having it included in the book Honoring Nature, which I'm also showing here. I was very excited about it and honored to even be asked. And she said she thought it would make a great chapter header for the chapter that was titled Warnings and Destruction, which seems appropriate. We discussed the piece and how it fit into the theme. The warnings, as shown here, there's this strange prophet hiding inside this large creature who could be a destroyer, with a long dark coat. The prophet holds a book, as if they know something and they're sharing the information, but it was hidden information until the destroyer revealed the prophet. And then the destroyer wears a gas mask because they know it's coming. And then we've got other beings that are shown here in prayer or despair, surrounded by more strange language, mysterious writing, things that are yet to be revealed. It all seemed like a good fit for warnings and destruction. And I was honored to have it appear in the book, alongside all of these other great artworks that are in there, and other writing. So shortly after that, and during those discussions, Lisa and I, were chatting via Zoom, and then just kind of continued our conversation about art and books and graphic design. And then the topic of this event, Rewilding, came up, and Lisa was kind enough to invite me to participate. And at first I was hesitant, mostly because I wasn't sure how my work fit into the subject or the category of rewilding. I was also a little hesitant because I'm not usually someone who discusses or talks about their own artwork for 30 minutes at a time. I'm not really a presenter per se. That's but I'm here. But usually I'm at home with my partner and our cat, and we're making artwork or watching movies, or I'm out riding my gravel bike or whatever. But anyway, I'm here, so here we are. And another thing that helped me get over that was I was talking to my partner and some of my friends to get their thoughts on what they would want to hear and how I could use this time in like an informative and hopefully at least a little bit fun way. all while sharing my work and my thoughts on rewilding and what it means to me as an artist, but also what I feel it means to all of us and our environment. So onto the question of how my art, since that's what I'm here talking to you about today, how that fits into rewilding. Like I said, at first I wasn't sure how it fit in, but then I started thinking more about the definition of rewilding, and I found these amongst many other definitions, but I put these here because I like these. And then you can find out more about that, obviously, from our webinars this weekend, but also there's a link down below if you want to get even more of that. So I'm thinking about rewilding and what that means and how that relates to us as humans. These definitions that I found are referencing our environment and the animals on our planet, and that's wonderful. It's perfect. That's definitely a direction I'd love to see us all continue towards, and that's one of the reasons I'm so happy to be a part of this event. But I also relate that concept to us, as humans, people. One of the videos that played during a presentation yesterday, I think it was in one of the rewilding short films that kicked off the event. It showed someone saying that rewilding also starts here. You're touching their chest, their heart. It starts from within. And I really love that. I feel like we're just like these creatures running around, and we've built up all of these laws and rules and structure. And it's so much like rigidness, especially as an artist. It kind of makes my head hurt sometimes, just thinking about all that. I'm often trying to create from a creative mind that's open and free, and having all of that sometimes makes that difficult. And so there was a quote by Picasso: every child is an artist. The problem is staying an artist when you grow up. And I really like that, and I connect with that. And I feel like that's kind of what we're trying to get back to. We start with our open child mind, and as an adult, especially as an adult artist, we may be struggling to hold on to that. We get stifled as humans, and our creativity gets stifled. As an artist, I'm trying to be in that child mind, that open-minded, wild mind, rewilding, right? To be in the mind that hasn't been told what's acceptable and what's not, and those colors won't work with those colors, and you have to stay in the lines, and you can't make a mess, blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of being open-minded, creatively speaking. But there's a loss of being wild. As an adult artist, I want to rewild my creativity. So that being said, I'm going to start this slideshow just to have my art running in the background. Let me jump to that real quick. All right, so I've learned the rules, the art rules. You use this color or draw like this. People like these things. I learned all that. I learned the rules, and now I do my best to break the rules. Right? The art doesn't have to mean anything. It can, but it doesn't have to, and it doesn't have to look the way you thought it should, or that Instagram tells you is best because the most people tapped on the heart icon, or the most people watched it on TikTok. It can just be what's mine, what's in my head, with no meaning or some meaning, but it's mine. And we want to do that same type of reset with nature, right? Get back to being wild, let everything grow as it should without human interference, let animals roam free, reproduce as they will, watch the grass grow and the trees, trying to reach the sky and push oxygen back up into the atmosphere so everything and everybody can breathe, breathe and grow and blossom and wither and die, as intended. And like nature, us people, humans, we also start as seeds, right? We grow, maybe we blossom, if we're lucky, we grow old, but then we wither and we die. Cycle of life, and maybe we'll return to the earth depending on your upbringing, or our energy goes out, somewhere, whatever you choose to believe. So I was sitting and thinking about all this and wondering how I can do something to contribute in some way, whether it be my doing something like recycling or planting a tree, or learning more about recycling and then teaching someone else what I've learned, and that could be through, for me, my telling them directly, or more likely in the form of storytelling through art. Maybe I make a comic strip that teaches people something, or I take someone with me out into a field and we both plant a tree, things to help the planet. Or maybe I choose a day to turn inward and rewild myself. I sit and think about what's going on in my life, or questions I have, or what's bothering me, or what do I love or want to see in the world. And I just sit down and draw it or paint it or write about it, kind of free form therapy. But then, there's the big question of, are there blockers? Are there things in my life or in my day or in the moment that are stopping me or delaying me from doing one of these acts of rewilding? And if so, what are they, and how can I work through them, or how can I use them to fuel my creativity? Everything has energy. So how can I use that energy of this thing that's blocking me currently for whatever reason? How can I use that energy to create, whatever it is, create change, or music, or poetry, or a knitted scarf, or a delicious meal? Like, what's the blocker? Am I just so hungry that I can't think straight because my blood sugar's all over the place and I just need to eat? Do I just not have enough time in the day to sit for an hour and write? And if so, why not? What's blocking me? And how do I figure out a solution? Maybe I really don't have 1 hour in a day of the week to work on rewilding, to work on myself, or whatever else that means to me. Maybe I only have 30 minutes twice a week, or maybe I only have 15 minutes while eating lunch, or right before bed, or as soon as I wake up. Where do I find the answer? So that brings me to getting rewild. So I want to do a quick exercise, a rewilding, release the creativity exercise with you guys. So if you can, or if it's handy, if you could grab a pen or a pencil and some paper, we're just going to scribble something down. We're not drawing, we're not going to show anything off. It's just a quick thing, something, where you can just write down, or maybe you have a laptop, you can type it, but I feel like pen or pencil and paper is best. That's me personally. I just feel like it gets you back to like the primitive, holding the stick and scrawling on the surface. I like that. Like my brain likes that. It's like deep in our DNA. You're scratching messages or symbols, we may not even understand yet. Like cave drawings, or drawings before they were cave drawings. Like a little kid, a toddler, like with a crayon in the living room. They're just doing whatever they want. Their mind's open. Things are just flowing out of their brain and onto the surface. They don't care if it looks good, or if it's messing up the overpriced wallpaper, or the paint job that you paid for, or if the colors work well together. It's all irrelevant. They're just creating. Just stick in hand, scrawling on the surface. Being like perfectly, beautifully primitive. I like that. All right. So, and again, if you don't have pen, pencil, or paper, you could type it, or you could just think about it, store your answers in your supercomputer human brain. I just find it helpful to write out. and so I'll talk through this as if you're writing it. All right. So I'm going to take your paper, draw 2 vertical lines so that you'll have 3 columns. And we're just going to write one short thing in each column. And if you are using a computer, it would just be 3 lines, 3 separate lines of text. We're not doing anything fancy or long. We don't want this to turn into work. And you can always just choose not to do it, and sit there and enjoy. You'll still get the idea. So this is what it should look like, basically. Right, you got your two lines on the page, so you got your 3 columns. You got your text. All right, so what's our goal? That's column 1. We're a rewilding goal, right? So we'll write rewilding goal at the top. And for this example, I just used something fairly simple: plant a tree. Right, that's my rewilding goal. Column 2 is what's blocking us, or slowing us down from achieving our rewilding goal, but I'm going to call it speed bump. Blocker sounds too difficult or rigid. So what's the thing that's slowing me down? If anything. If nothing, then that's great. In the planting the tree example, the speed bump is that I don't know where to buy an unplanted tree. That would slow me down. Like, I don't even know if that's what I would be saying. Like, do you say unplanted tree? I don't know. So that brings me to column 3. This is our nudge. All right, this is the nudge that we need to cruise over our speed bump, right? To achieve our goal. We just need a nudge. So I'd write something like what you see here. I need to research where to buy a tree to plant, or research local tree nursery and start asking questions. I just want to get the conversation started, so I can get answers. And maybe the nudge is going to take a couple of steps. If something comes to us, we can write that down too. So we're basically laying out our path, our plan to achieve our goal, our plan to gift ourselves some rewilding, and whatever that means for us. Right. But these goals could be anything. It works with anything. It doesn't have to be rewilding. That's just our subject today. So that's the example I'm using. Write whatever calls to you. You don't have to share this with anyone ever if you don't want to. So we'll take 30 seconds, like literally. I've got my phone. I'm gonna time us for 30 seconds to write this down. You can just write down 1 or do more, whatever comes to you. If you're not doing it, it might seem like a long time, and that's fine. You can work on your breathing or your patience, or just sit and enjoy the silence. All right, and I'm going to do it with you. All right, so 30 seconds starting now. All right, that actually went by very quickly. I can just had to scribble, but I scribbled words, but I didn't get into too much. Again, you don't have to share any of these if you don't want to. If you do want to, please feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, they're just for you or whoever you want to share them with, if you feel like it. And so I'll go through mine real quick. Just to show what my thought process was, and if people put anything in, we can go through those, or people can talk about theirs also. So my rewilding goal is creating awareness through art. And the idea being that I'd like to raise more awareness about single-use recycling and how we're harming our planet and ways to help with that awareness. So I was thinking maybe like a short zine or comic strip or something with some aliens, and this alien parent, and they see that Earthlings are destroying our planet, using these single-use plastics, and they're teaching their kids, like, see, don't do what these people are doing. They're destroying their planet. But then maybe the alien kids want to help us somehow, and so because kids are like that, they're usually so sweet and nice. So they want to send us some helpful, mysterious message in some way. Maybe it's encased in a small meteor or something, and it gets to Earth, and somehow we translate it, and everybody wins or something like that. And then after the comic's over, I could have a few facts on ways to recycle, or what to recycle, or resources, or whatever. So that's my rewilding goal: creating awareness through art. A speed bump. So what's slowing me down? Well, for one thing, I'm not really someone who usually draws aliens in comic strips. So obviously, I would need to work on that. I also feel like I would need to be more informed on single-use plastic recycling, and I chose one thing from recycling, just to be focused. So my nudge would be drawing 15 to 30 minutes every other morning. So not that much time. It's not every day. If I have to miss a day, I miss a day, but doing it every day and practicing drawing aliens from different angles or whatever it is that I need to do. And then learning more about recycling, so that I can teach that too. And so I've got my action items, and if I needed accountability, I could check in with someone and say, hey, ask me about this stuff, in a week or something. Anyway, that's that. And again, if anybody wants to put anything in and share it, they can, but no worries if not. And then I've got one other thing I wanted to share here real quick. This book by Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way. This book really helped me a lot with getting back in touch with myself, my younger artist. She has this practice called the morning pages, where you write every morning. You have a certain number of pages that you write. Pencil on paper or pen on paper seems to work best. This is a 25th anniversary edition that I'm showing here, but I think they're on 30 years or something like that now. So this has been around a long time. It's a proven thing that really works really well, and it's helped me so much that I wanted to share it here. I guess so. I know I'm already almost out of time. That went by pretty quickly. Were there any questions, or did anyone have anything that they wanted to share before I use up this last minute and a half or so?
Hey, Christopher, this is Paul.
Hey, Paul.
Great presentation. I wanted to let's see, we're waiting for Martin to come in, so we have a little bit of time here.
Okay.
I have read The Artist's Way. It's a great book. It helped me at one point in terms of so I was a performer, a writer, without getting take up too much time. So artist view. What I've seen over the years of 30 years, 40, more than that, being involved in the schools and being having the arts taken out of schools, and having students not have the experience of having a blank sheet of paper and saying, go ahead, try to paint or try to do something. And then they draw and they go, see, I'm not very good. And it's like, well, why did you think that you were going to be the first time?
Yeah.
Maybe if you don't share your screen, we'll see each other and then we can talk a little bit here.
Oh, yeah, sure. I can.
And so basically, let me see if I can spotlight for everybody. Oh, let me get you spotlighted too, though. So it's kind of a wild thing in terms of what's happening with people experiencing art. Oh, it looks like Martin made it in. That's good. So we'll just jump to him in a couple minutes here. So let me ask you just, you're dealing in symbols and you're dealing in things that people might say, well, that doesn't look like a dog. And getting the acceptance that it's okay. What's your sense of how to try to bring back that it's okay to try to do what you see and feel and draw? I mean, obviously, you're giving yourself the permission to say, I'm fine with this drawing. Maybe just state a little bit about how you came to accepting that and not going with TikTok's recommendation or whatever anybody else's for real quick, and then we'll bring in Martin in.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thank you. I think it was just through my own practice, and I've always, that's just for me personally, I've always just been drawing. So it's always been just kind of a part of me, and it's become a part of like a therapy, really. But I've been lucky to have people in my life who I did share it with that really liked it and were really supportive and really positive, starting with my parents, my partner, it's just friends. So I've also gone to art school and know, what to do and not to do. And then just kind of having to be able to consciously make that choice of, well, yeah, I could do this and it will look okay, but it's not making me happy. Like I'm not enjoying creating it. And I feel like as a creative, you need to be happy in what you're doing. You need to be creating for yourself first. I think that's where being comfortable comes from.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Sorry to press you in terms of that, but I'm glad
No, I
that
appreciate it. That's a great question. Thank you.
that Martin made it in. So let's move to Martin. If you could come on, and we'll jump right into your program. I'm so glad that we got the links settled and the technology, and look at that beautiful artwork behind you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. So I'd love to share both some of my work and some of the things that have been huge influences on my life as both an artist and a teacher. So I'm gonna jump over here. Okay. So as I said, my name is Martin Bridge. I was very fortunate to be born into a family that is completely saturated with artists and nature lovers. And those are two of the things that have been central in my life from the very beginning. And to share a little work of some of my ancestry. This is a landscape of my father's that he was done actually when he was in the Aleutian Islands, when he was in the service. He had been drafted and during the Vietnam War era, and he was given the choice of 2 years in Nam or 4 years elsewhere, and he was like, I'll take that, thank you. So one of his jobs was to track Soviet satellites and communications while up there, but he was really far more interested in watching the landscape and the local Arctic fox population. His work was, somewhat abstract renditions rather than very literal translations of what he was seeing and depicting. And a big influence on his work was his own uncle, my great uncle, sculptor Clark Battle Fitzgerald. And he was a prominent sculptor based out of, first St. Louis, and then moved up to Castine, Maine, where he lived and created for most of his life. And this is his inspiration was also a lot of forms found in nature, and this was a depiction of mitosis, both a study and then the actual large sculpture bronze that created for installation. And in addition to sort of like being inspired by the artists in my family, we found that many of us are kind of working with similar motifs and themes in our work. And these are two different interpretations of the same subject by his son, Stephen Fitzgerald. So, and to just share my translation into painting, which is currently my primary media, even though I've through my father, who was a ceramicist and hobby architect and did both watercolor and acrylic and oil paintings. I got exposed to many media, which then eventually led me into theatrical work. So I work in scenic design, construction, and painting. And but of late, I've really been focusing on just painting, and my sort of style fits most closely with the sort of what classification of visionary art. So kind of trying to depict a mystic or spiritual connection in the works. And so other huge influences that I've had on my work, there was a walk in the woods where I was introduced to the work of these two fine fellows. On the left is the prominent mycologist Paul Stamets. And also on the right, we have Bill Mollison, the pioneer of the permaculture concept. I'm pretty proud that portrait was used in his memorial article in the Australian Permaculture magazine. Also appeared in the UK Permaculture. Didn't nail the trifecta of the US. They're trying to keep things a little more straight, and it was a little weird for them. But fortunately, through that portrait, it's interesting how art can build bridges, and especially in this day and age where images can circulate throughout the World Wide Web. I stumbled into interactions with a Francis Mollison, and it turned out that I was communicating with his daughter, and suddenly had a sort of backdoor entry into his life and his work. And both in that, and it's amazing for me how just two things dropped in conversation in an hour and a half walk through the woods became really central to my life and my both lifestyle and my study and teaching. And I really, for me, art is a vehicle to, or sort of like a entry point into larger communications. And both of these two individuals and have really helped me flesh out how to translate my own love and reverence for the natural world and celebrate that through art, but then also to not just use art as a tool for drawing attention to issues of import to me, but also connecting that with direct physical action to sort of change the way that I'm interacting with the web of life around me. So these are pieces that have been pretty important for me to celebrate visionaries and teachers that I've drawn a lot from. So one of the things that I mentioned in our talk yesterday is I presented along with Steve Trombilac on our book, The Way of Gaia, a very early sort of little piece. I was a big fan of Joseph Campbell, and in his interview series, The Power of Myth with Bill Moyers, there was a thing where he was talking about the depiction of things, many times animal or human, in many different indigenous art forms that were much more abstract than the sort of photorealism that you're seeing in a lot of sort of European-based and derived arts. And he spoke to it as the trying to show a quality of the spiritual characteristics of the subject, whether it's animal or otherwise, rather than the physical form. And that's something that stuck with me, and especially in a world where if we're looking at nature, we can fight to try to do the job of depicting the natural world as realistically as a camera, or we can try to figure out as artists how we can show a quality that's a little different than what we might see with those tools. And so that's been something that's sort of dictated the style of a lot of my work and a lot of the work that we used in shaping The Way of Gaia. And like most artists of whatever media, right, we draw on themes or styles, or sometimes even the same subject that we revise and edit. And so sometimes playing with integrating different elements is a thing that I certainly do, where take a piece that I've found something moving in and sort of repeat and refine or alter or add to. And oftentimes, my work ranges from representational to much more abstract, and this is one that was really more began as just a geometric abstract, and to me sort of became a symbol for sort of cycles and shifting and turning, and actually was a piece that then wound up getting integrated into a writing called Cycles during the as a part of the Way of Gaia project, the book that we just published in February. So, this is one of my more sort of popular pieces in terms of people ordering prints and other products with it. So you can kind of get a sense of which things resonate. And it's funny because sometimes the work that happens, if I compare this to the time that went into that little DNA helix that we looked at a few minutes ago. In fact, I'll just bump back there, right? This one took way longer in terms of the line work and dot work, and there's a lot more going on in that. And at the same time, sometimes less is more. And for some reason, this piece that took shape in a matter of over the course of a weekend, it has definitely spoken to a lot of people. And I think with our discussions yesterday on rewilding and again, this is one of a piece that's both, it's pretty clear what the subject is, but I'm not going for absolute photorealism in it and trying to communicate something else. This is a piece titled The Calling, and actually has some parallels to a practice it was actually inspired by a practice in a men's group that I've been working with in the Earth Spirit community over the last 12 to 15 years. And to me, really, this piece was really about how in that circle, we have a very simple practice where we just sometimes, we live, existing as men in a world where individual strength and confidence is prized. And if you have to ask for help, you're a weakling, and you're got to man up and handle things on your own. And so it's really hard for us to call out for help. And often when we're in a rough state and we're worried about putting more on someone else's shoulders, it's hard to figure out who to reach out to. So we just simply, put out a little message. Hal just means I need help, and someone who has the time and energy and space will respond to that person. I live in the woods in Western Mass, and the only time that I ever sent a little message to our group to that effect, I had someone show up at my door within an hour, which is pretty rare, very special. So this has a lot of different layers for me in terms of the meaning of this piece. Just to share another one of my more popular pieces, this is a piece Apis, and I think if you know any beekeepers, you know exactly how nuts they are about their bees, right? So, a great way to connect with an audience is to find a niche interest, and people who are excited about that will get super fired up. This piece was primarily acrylic, but in the last few layers, I actually integrated you can kind of see the texture in it, actual beeswax from some hives that a friend gave me. So now, one of the things that I, as now having for long time done self-practice and study of permaculture design, and then started getting involved in assisting a permaculture design certificate course where I was basically the mycology instructor. I have gotten a lot more involved in sort of promoting and teaching and getting people interested in or understanding the basics of permaculture design, and then sending people to their next steps. And one of the largest sort of art projects that I've been working on over the course of the last now almost 15 years is the design and build and slow expansion of my homestead Ardor, which is intended to be sort of a model of temperate climate permaculture design strategies. And to me, it's both sort of a living sculptural work where I'm trying to do things that are intensely practical, but also try to do it in a beautiful, inspiring way, and a sort of living laboratory and teaching tool. And I've hosted groups who come and tour and look at and talk about what we're doing. And I kind of, not really jokingly, but I consider this to be sort of one of my evolving living sculptural works that gives a good entry point for conversations when people see it and they like, what's going on here? And then can lead into the conversations in the way that often, paintings do. Like a story I share very frequently is about the portrait of Paul Stamets that I showed earlier, where I was working on that live and someone was asking me who it was, and one thing led to another, and next thing you know, he's coming to one of my intro to mycology courses, and then a couple of years later, he's gone far further in cultivation than I even have. And how an art piece can be a window into a greater conversation that can, in the end, wind up potentially changing lives, right? Because I think many of us artists hope that whatever we create in whatever media we work at, that it sparks something that hopefully changes someone's lives. I think that's probably one of the greatest aims of art, right? So recently a massive project was, and this is what we spoke on yesterday, the Way of Gaia, a book that Steve Krombielek and I have been shaping over the last 7 years, sort of collection of his poetry and my visual work that was built off of sort of back and forth flow, where one of us would create a piece in response to a list of different topics, and the other would respond in their art form. And it was both a really fun project for me, and also I learned a lot from him. I mean, he's a brilliant scientist of, former professor emeritus of Middlebury College, taught conservation biology and biospheric studies, and really, helped me sort of change how I look at some of the complexities of the interrelations in our ecosphere in ecology. So, I just to make sure I leave a little time for any questions or discussions. One of the things that a piece that has been pretty important to me and has become kind of a symbol I use a lot. There was a quote by the amazing permaculture elder Larry Santoyo, who's a ex-cop. He's intensely quotable because he doesn't mince his words, and there was a discussion happening where people were questioning use of energy, right? And everything we do, we're expending energy, and as artists, right, we're using, especially those of us who think of our work as at all environmentally based, many of us are using materials that were once either living things or mined minerals. And what impact are we having on the world around us just by the materials that we use in our art? And is that actually ecologically sound? And there's the question about resources. If we have energy and resources, what are we doing with that, and what's the right choice to do? And when you're looking at that in the sustainability context, that question is dizzying sometimes. And Larry just had this very simple response where he's like, don't worry, just make sure that your handprint exceeds your footprint. And I found that to be very beautiful. And I guess that's probably one of the greatest hopes I have with my work, is that the net positive impact on our culture and on the audience that I'm able to reach is worth the expenditure of materials, and something I meditate on and sort of pray for a lot. So that's just a super quick introduction of myself and my work, and I don't know how we want to go from here.
Well, thank you so much, Martin. I'm so glad you made it in, because I was so looking forward to your hearing your presentation. I'm in Western Mass also, and This is Paul, and I've been in men's groups for over 30 years, so we have a lot to talk about at some other point. What I like is your work, and Christopher, if you want to jump in here too, this last couple minutes, is some of your stuff, you could say, this is the dividing line between people. So even the piece behind you, some people would say, unfortunately, because I don't know if you heard me mention, with the lack of arts in the school and students being able to experience art themselves and having the ability to say, trusting their own voice. If I looked at the image behind you, can I say that I like it or not like it and feel okay with that? Or do I somehow feel like, well, should I like it? Is it something I should like? Or am I going to give the wrong answer if I say I don't understand it or I don't like it? That's always happened with abstract art in that way. Here, let me put you in here too. I'm going to spotlight you for both of you here, so you can both be here to talk to each other and to me. Just talk a little bit about that. You're both are breaking that ground or being there for folks to question themselves. And your presentation was very nice, Martin, in the sense that it was gently trying to bring them into this. What do you experience? And as you said, the one with the wolf or the howling, suddenly somebody saw an image that they could relate to or something, where the other ones, maybe they're going, what am I supposed to be looking at? Could you make any, conversation related to that, of your own feelings about some of that?
Well, I mean, part of, one of the, what's interesting is having just come from an event last weekend where someone was asking me what a piece was about, and my simple answer in that moment was, well, what do you see? Right.
Yeah.
And then they went into their interpretation of it all. And part of it was a painting that I started at that, I had a form built that it was, that was taking shape, but it was a painting that was far from done. And I had tons of room for deciding where we wanted to go with it, right? And so when they were asking me what it was about, I was like, well, what do you see? And then then they looked at me to kind of basically like get validation if they were right or right. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And part of it is, I like to keep things in an abstract realm so that there is that room for personal interpretation, personal experience. And the last thing I want to do is create work where I'm trying to say something where, I find it as a teacher, sometimes I have students where I have them create a piece and then sit and listen to there's a difference between intention and reception in the audience. And where I basically try to keep them silent while people are talking about the work. And sometimes they get defensive because they have this idea that what they're going to communicate it is going to come through, and they try to tell people, no, it's blah blah blah. And I'm like, hey, you need to hear, because if they're not interpreting what you intended, it's not their failing, right? So trying to keep things in an abstract realm where there is room for interpretation and one's own experience being brought to it is pretty important to me.
Christopher, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, and Martin, thank you. I love your work. It's amazing. I'd love to catch up with you another time to talk more. Yeah, I feel like art's just like such a mysterious thing anyway, and it's all made up, but like for some reason there's this art world with these art rules where, no, that's not art, this is art. Yeah, and obviously it's all open to interpretation, but I like what you were saying, Martin, about people getting defensive or not really listening, really, no, I meant this. And I feel like some of that is just, as the artist, just practicing being aware and just open to what other people are seeing. Like you said, people aren't wrong. If this is what they see in your work, then this is what they see in your work. And that to me is what really makes art so powerful. It's everybody's bringing their own thing to the table. They all have their past that they bring to every piece that they look at. Everyone's going to get something different. Even when it's very obvious. When it's laid out and the words are there, people still have their own things, and I think that's really important to remember. And I think it's something that as an artist you have to really be aware of and be ready to listen to. And I think a lot of that just comes with practice, and the fact that you, Martin, are a teacher who's teaching artists and students to do that, at an earlier age or whatever age they are, just as artists in general. I think that's really, really important. I think that's going to help them both as artists, but also just as people. It's just listening skill, and then knowing what to do with that. I think that's really great.
I found in my previous art work that I did, I used to do collages, and at this one show, people would come up and one person would say, "Oh, this is what you're saying," and someone next to them would say, "No, no, no, that's what they're saying." And if I said to both of them, "Yes, that is what I'm saying," they would both look at me like, "What are you talking about? It can't be both." And it was,
Right.
yes, it can be. And they thought I was like pulling their leg instead of trying to get the discussion about, well, this is what you see, or this is what you're interpreting. And now that I'm doing writing and poetry, there's the same thing. Three people will hear the same poem, and one thinks I'm hating my father, and the other one thinks I'm loving my father. And so it's kind of like, well, maybe we should talk about your relationship with your father. I'm not sure.
Right.
I'm not sure what you picked up from where, but it's an interesting aspect for us to, and we don't have a society that really promotes listening. Everything is a competition and an argument instead of, are we learning from each other in that of, what did you say and what did I say, and is there now something third that we could come up with? I just want to thank both of you. It was excellent. I hope the audience will check out all your work and go see other things that you're doing. Thank you very much for the presentations and bringing up these things, because I don't see it in the regular media, and I've given up on. I used to be in schools for over 30 years, besides being just a professional artist, and it was so sad to see them taking the arts out, and then having students realize that they didn't know what they were looking at, even in performances. I mean, I went to a high school once where they hadn't had any assemblies for 9 years, and we were juggling and balancing ladders, and we brought in the ladders. They thought we were building something. They said, "What are you going to assemble today?" We said, "No, no, we're having an assembly." And we realized, oh, they had no context for it. They didn't know we were going to
Wow.
perform. And when we were jumping around, they were looking at us like, "Why are you guys jumping around?" I mean, they had never seen theater before. So it was kind of a wild thing to realize, oh, you can't explain something if someone hasn't experienced it. And they really need to do that. And so thank you it was great experiencing each of your artwork, looking at it. It was just brought a lot of different emotions to me, and hopefully the audience and hopefully many, many other people they have been seeing these videos afterwards. So thanks again for being part of this festival. And we're going to move on to our next hour, and I hope to get in contact with each of you separately to make some more connections.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
It's been a pleasure.